Good day everyone, this is the report of Group 6, the communicating and reporting of assessment data from alternative methods. But before we are going to start, let us define first what is communication assessment and reporting assessment. Communication assessment. It is a good way to understand a child or young person's learning needs. An assessment could lead to further investigations, interventions, or recommendations in order to support the child or young person with their learning and language. Next is reporting assessment. It is the process used to communicate knowledge gained from assessing student learning. The purpose of reporting is to provide relevant information about a student's progress to students, parents, support staff, and other teachers. So now let us proceed to the significant culminating performance tests and success indicators, which will be discussed by Ms. Vinluan.
My topic for today is significant culminating performance test and success indicator. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to demonstrate your knowledge and skills and giving feedback to learners based on the results of alternative forms of assessment like performance test, checklist, skills, and portfolio. You are considered successful in this culminating performance test. You have satisfied at least the following indicators of success. Here are the performance tests and indicators of success. First, provide adequate feedback to learners. As a teacher, we need to provide adequate feedback to learners for us to know if the learners is may natutuhan sa mga itinuturo natin at para na din alam natin kung saan tayo dapat mag-focus sa leksyon. About assessment task and corresponding rubric to monitor the progress of the attainment. Dapat, we need to monitor the progress of learners for us to know if we are an effective teachers to achieve their goals as a learner. And the second one is communicate progress of learners based on their portfolio. As a teacher, we know how to communicate the progress of learners based on their portfolio. It's because dito natin makikita ang lahat ng files ng bata, and every time we give task to learners. Portfolio to inform the learners what they can do and cannot do. We must inform the learners what they need to do and cannot do for them to avoid some instances that we cannot expect as a teacher that the learners can do, and they will be aware what is the right thing can avoid to do as a learners. And the last one is organize a meeting with parents relaying the results of learners' performance. We must set a meeting to parents so that they know the status of their children in school. The parents didn't know what's happening in school, and they are waited the teacher's invitation to inform the result of their children's performance. Teachers should organize the meeting so that parents can follow up their children in home. Guidelines in communicating parents. As a teacher, we have guidelines how to communicate the parents so that they should know the progress of their children. Teachers and parents communication is important because this is the time to meet the parents and para na din masabi ng teachers kung mayroon pa bang dapat na i-improve ang bata for his or her success.
Hello, good morning. My name is Kristen Joy Fluke, one of the Group 6 member. My assigned topic is about feedback. Today, I am going to discuss the following about feedback. Purpose of feedback, why is feedback a powerful means to help learners improve, and the content of feedback. First, I am going to define what is feedback. Feedback. Feedback is an information about reactions to a product, a person performance of a task, and etc., which is used as a basis for improvement. In classroom, feedback is information given to the learner or teacher about the learner's performance relative to learning goals or outcome. Feedback is an important component of effective learning. It improves learner confidence, motivation to learn, and ultimately a learner's attainment. Many of us want a feedback in our performance tasks or outputs because it helps us to improve our performance. It makes us to do better because maybe next time you will be do better because of the feedback you earned or get to your instructors. Feedback gives us opportunity to revise or redo our work. Purpose of feedback to learners' improvement. Of course, feedback has a purpose rather in our improvement. Feedback is an essential part of effective learning. It helps students understand the subject being studied and gives them a clear guidance on how to improve their learning. Effective feedback is designed to determine a learner's level of understanding and skill development in order to plan the next steps towards achieving the learning intentions or goals. Also, to provide information and observations about a performance, a paper, or another project. Teachers and employers provide feedback to students and employees to help them improve in the future. Why is feedback a powerful means to help learners improve? It helps the learner improve their academic performance. Because of the feedback that given to us of our instructors or anyone else, it helps us to improve our performance. For example, here, in singing contest, you gain feedback or your coach give you a feedback. So maybe good or bad feedback. So that you give your best to improve your performance. Second, allows the learners to determine which part of their performance needs improvement. Feedback helps us to know if our performance is good or not, or needs improvement. Provide specific information to learners on what they need to do to revise or redo their task in a better way. For example, here is our thesis paper, which our instructor give us feedback and give us a chance to revise or redo our thesis paper in a better way. In giving feedback, we're not just giving a feedback on our own or giving a feedback because we know how to give a feedback, but there's a way to give a feedback. In giving, there's a way rather for us to consider in giving a feedback. The following are the content of feedback. First, the part of the answer or response that needs to be corrected. Let us always give a specific feedback to our learner. Put highlight on where is the students needs to improve their performance or needs to be corrected. Second, the specific strategy to be used to perform the task. As a teacher, let's give our learners a specific work or what they're going to do in their perform task rather. Third, the suggested procedure that needs to be undertaken by the learner. As a teacher, we need to give a procedure on how students perform their task. Instruction, of course. Instruction on how students perform their task or on how they going to do their outputs. Fourth, a direction to the learner where to find the answer. In giving feedback, of course, as a teacher, you need to tell your learners on where is the good answer to be undertaken. Like for example, in research paper, you give direction to your learners if where they can find a better source on their doing task or where they can find or locate an answer to make their research paper improve. Fifth, a challenge to the learner to think about the appropriate response. In this case, the learner will be think if what they teacher reaction in their work. For example, in checking their research paper research paper. The learners think what will be their teacher's reaction about the research paper or they think what will be my teacher's feedback regarding to our outputs, either good or bad feedback. Last, a clarification on some misconception of the learner. In giving feedback, of course, as a teacher, we need to give us to do the student we need to give us the students a clarification for them to understand, to give explanation or an instruction on some part that they don't understand. Content feedback is enabling is like starting an open dialogue with your customer or learners. Through their feedback, they will tell you what's missing or what else they need to be successful. That's all. Thank you.
Good afternoon, classmates. Good afternoon, ma'am. Today I will continue the report of Miss Fluke about the feedback or about feedback. First, which is feedback during performance. Feedback during performance can be verbal or non-verbal. Verbal feedback can be written in a big signage like poster or hardy whiteboard, visible to the learner. This is possible to do when a performance cannot be stopped, like when one is currently dancing or singing. Like for example, in Tawag ng Tanghalan, which is when the performance of the contender and the jurados notice some mistakes, Rey Valera raised his 3 fingers, which means it needs to stop the performance to avoid further mistakes. And another example of explanation for non-verbal performance is it's not shows any words. It is only facial expression or gestures only. And the second one was feedback after performance. Feedback after performance can also be given after the performance or the performance of the task. This is appropriate when learners are provided another opportunity to revise the show again, the performance. Like example also in Tawag Tanghalan. The jurado said to the 2 contenders is if one is out, it has a chance to show again or to sing again or come again to show his or her talents in the said show. It is also feedback needs to be specific and concrete. Yes, it is very needs to be specific and concrete. A feedback must be general. General in a terms of General is in terms of, for example, in general feedback is when you say the painting is good. It's very general, which is, as a student or as a painter, hindi ko po alam kung saan yung good doon sa part ng aking painting. As a teacher or the horado in the said exhibit, we must say the painting is, perhaps in this painting you may use another color like light color in this part, or in this water it must be flow. We must specific para alam po nung learners or nung painters kung saan po yung maganda at saan pa yung dapat niyang pagandahin. Kaya, importante po sa feedback na maging specific. Hindi po pwedeng i-generalize natin lahat. Kailangan pong maging specific tayo sa ating mga feedback para mas ma-improve pa yung ating mga gawain. And also, feedback needs to be based on the agreed criteria. Yes, hindi tayo pwede pong magbasta-basta magsabi ng feedback natin na wala po doon sa pinagkakasunduan natin between us teacher and the student. Feedback, kasi po, yung feedback na, the example of feedback not based on criteria, there are several grammatical errors in the paper. Maka-question po yung bata o yung estudyante natin na wala naman sinabi si ma'am sa criteria na grammatical, dapat ganito, grammatical ng ganito, grammatical sa paper natin. Mag-question yung student natin na wala naman pala doon sa kasali sa criteria yung grammatical errors. Instead, we must feedback based on criteria, which is sasabihin natin doon sa bata na we agree in this criteria na check the idea conveyed by the another in the journal because there are discrepancy. Dahil doon sa pinagkasunduan natin na criteria, dapat hindi redundancy at hindi yung copy-paste. Kasi sabi na agree ng student and the teacher, between the student and the teacher, na hindi dapat copy-paste. Dapat on words. Kaya, doon lang tayo magbigay ng feedback natin. Like another example in criteria not based on feedback not based on criteria is the heading needs to be bold font. Kasi doon sa criteria na pinagkasunduan, hindi naman natin sinabi sa mga bata na kailangan yung essay nyo naka-bold yung headings. Hindi siya pwede. It is not good nga na ganun yung sasabihin natin. Instead, sasabihin natin dun sa student, according sa criteria na pinagkakasunduan na add one more reference to support further your claims. Kumbaga, dagdagan mo pa yung mga further explanation mo. Kasi nakabase tayo sa criteria. And also, feedback should be provide recommendation or suggestion on how to improve performance. It is very important na ang feedback natin, magbibigay tayo ng idea para maging mas maganda pa yung performance ng ating mga estudyante as a teacher. May mga example po dito ng bad feedback and good feedback. The example of bad feedback is, I cannot hear your voice. Hindi po natin siya pwedeng sasabihin yan sa ating mga estudyante. Hindi natin pwedeng sabihin sa mga estudyante na, I cannot hear your voice. Instead, we must say, make your voice louder. Yun ang magandang feedback. Another bad feedback is, why are you looking at the ceiling while speaking? Pansin po natin, yung mga estudyante natin when they are giving report to the front, medyo nahihiya pa yung ating mga estudyante. Instead na mag-concentrate sila doon sa report nila, titingin sa ating mga classmate dahil nahihiya sila, titingin-tingin sila kung saan. Kaya hindi natin siya pwedeng sabihin na, why are you looking at the ceiling? Wala pong recommendation or suggestion na maganda doon. Instead, we said na look at your classmates when you speak in front. Kumbaga, minomotivate natin sila, ini-encourage natin sila na be confident. Tingin ka sa mga classmates mo, while are you speaking. Yun po yung mga bad and good feedback na pwede nating i-apply sa ating mga estudyante in a future.
Yung good lang.
Yung good, oo. Yung good, yung pwedeng i-apply. Yun yung mga bad na feedback, yung kaya po nung sinabi ko kanina na I can hear your voice. I can't hear your voice. Hindi ko naririnig yung voice mo. Walang ano doon. Sasabihin po ng estudyante natin, ang lakas-lakas na nga ng boses ko, hindi niya pa naririnig, baka bingi lang si teacher. Instead, ang sasabihin natin, class, make your voice louder. Kumbaga, alam na ng bata na, kailangan ko pa palang lakasan. Yun lang po at maraming salamat.
So, good day everyone. I am Beyblade Gonzaga, BE Ed 2. For today's video, I will discuss about the types of feedback. Feedback can serve a number of purposes and take a number of forms. Feedback can provide as a single entity. Example, informal feedback on a student's grasp of a concept in class, or a combination of multiple entities. Example, formative peer feedback on stage 1 of an assessment task. Each has its place in enhancing and maximizing student learning. Thus, where possible, courses should provide opportunities for a range of feedback types.
Informal feedback. Informal feedback can occur at any time as it is something that emerges spontaneously in the moment or during action. Therefore, informal feedback requires the building of rapport with students to effectively encourage, coach, or guide them in daily management and decision-making for learning. This might occur in the classroom, over the phone, in an online forum, or virtual class. Formal feedback. Formal feedback is planned and systematically scheduled into the process, usually associated with assessment tasks. Formal feedback includes the likes of marking criteria, competencies, or achievement of standards, and it is recorded for both the student and the organizations as evidence. Formative feedback. The goal of formative assessment is to monitor student learning to provide ongoing feedback that can be used by instructors to improve their teaching and by students to improve their learning. Therefore, formative feedbacks is the best given early in the course and prior to summative assessment. Formative feedback helps students to improve and prevent them from making the same mistakes again. In some cases, feedback is required before students can progress or feel capable of processing to the next stage of the assessment. Summative feedback. The goal of summative assessment is to evaluate student learning at the end of an instructional unit by comparing it against some standard or benchmark. Therefore, summative feedback consists of detailed comments that are related to specific aspects of their work. Clearly explains how the mark was derived from the criteria provided and additional constructive comments on how the work could be improved. Student peer feedback. There is no longer need for teachers to be the one or only experts within a course. With the basic instruction and ongoing support, students can learn to give quality feedback, which is highly valued by peers, providing students with regular opportunities to give and receive peer feedback enriches their learning experiences and develops their professional skill set. Student self-feedback. This is the ultimate goal of feedback for learning. During the provision of feedback, teachers have the opportunity not only to provide direction for the students, but to teach them through explicit modeling and instruction the skills of assessment or self-assessment and goal setting, leading them to become more independent. To help students reach autonomy, teachers can explicitly identify, share, and clarify learning goals and success criteria. Model the application of criteria using samples. Provide guided opportunities for self-feedback. Teach students how to use feedback to determine next steps and set goals, and allow the time for self-feedback or reflection. Constructive feedback. These types of feedback is specific issue focused and based on observations. There are four types of constructive feedback: negative feedback, positive feedback, negative feed forward, positive feed forward. Negative feedback, corrective comments about past behavior, focuses on behavior that wasn't successful and shouldn't be repeated. Positive feedback, affirming comments about past behavior, focuses on behavior that was successful and should be continued. Negative feed forward, corrective comments about future performance, focuses on behavior that should be avoided in the future. Positive feed forward, affirming comments about future behavior, focused on behavior that will improve performance in the future. Thank you.
Okay, so let us continue to discuss how to use portfolios to help learners improve. Portfolio can provide structure for involving students and developing and understanding criteria for good efforts in coming to see the criteria as their own and applying the criteria to their own and other students' work. Okay, so we have types of portfolios to help learners improve. First is collect, select, reflect, format, and submit. Okay, so number one is collect. Collect, tell student where in the curriculum or co-curricular activities they will produce evidence related to the outcomes being assessed. So, ibig sabihin, ang collect ay sabihin sa mga estudyante kung saan sa curriculum o co-curricular activity makagawa sila ng katibayan na may kinalaman sa kinalabasan. Ito yung tinatawag na collect. Number 2 is select. Select means ask students to select the evidence, instruct students to label each piece of evidence according to the learning outcomes being demonstrated. Ang ibig sabihin naman ng select, papiliin ang mga estudyante ng katibayan. Sabihin sa mga estudyante na sulatan ang bawat piraso ng katibayan ayon sa mga resulta ng pagkatuto na ipinamalas. Ito ay tinatawag na select. Number 3 is reflect. Reflect, give students directions on how to write a 1 or 2-page reflective essay memo that explain why they selected the particular examples. Ibig sabihin, ang reflect ay halimbawa, bigyan ng mga estudyante ng mga tagubilin kung paano sumulat ng isa o dalawang pahinang mababanaag sa nisay alaala na nagpapaliwanag kung bakit nila pinili ang particular na mga halimbawa. Number 4, format. Tell students the format requirements, type of binder font and style guide requirements, online submission requirements. Ibig sabihin, ang format ay ang sabihin sa mga estudyante ang mga kinakailangan sa format. Halimbawa, uri ng mga kinakailangan sa binder font at estilo ng gabay sa estilo. Mga online na kinakailangan sa pagsusumite. Last is submit. Give submission and pick up dates and instructions. Ibig sabihin naman ng submit, magbigay ng isinumiti at petsa at tagubilin.
That's right, and now we were going to share some tips in making portfolios a powerful vehicle in communicating learning progress and areas reading improvement. Some tips in making portfolio a powerful vehicle in communicating learning progress and areas reading improvement. First, schedule a time slot to sit beside each child to show progress in learning. In this part of assessing student, the teacher will conduct an interview with her student alternately. Second, let the learners reflect in each entry in the portfolio. For example, let them write a letter for themselves detailing what they've learned from an experience. Next, let the learners report their observation on the transition of one work to another. It's where we will go into determine and ask the students about how they think about classroom's transition and time management in every work and activities. Next, let the learners reflect on the other areas that need to be continued and improved for succeeding work. In this area, the teacher will allow the student to see their own progression in class by telling what they have already done and advising what more do they need to do to improve themselves in doing things. And lastly, end the conversation with the learners with encouragement and the belief that they can improve and capable of doing tasks. After the assessment, the teacher will end the conversation and will motivate the students by showing her or his full support. Encourage the students that they can do more and can be more capable in doing their tasks.
Okay, good day everyone. I am going to explain to you on how to organize meeting with parents. So, assessment results are also communicated to parents. The parents are partners in child's learning, and information about the academic standing of their child should be communicated with them. So, as a teacher, we should know on how to communicate with parents, enable for them to know on what are the following problems of the students in terms of their learnings. And dapat parents talaga yung unang mag-guide sa kanilang anak dahil sila yung nakakakilala at nakakaalam kung paano lutasin yung mga nararanasan or mga problems na pwedeng i-solve sa kanilang mga anak. And so as parents, we should also know on how to support and communicate with the students or the children in a good way or in a nice way. So next, they are needed to provide further support in their learning. Assessment results are communicated through the process of parents and the teacher. So, as a teacher, we should know on how to assess or communicate with the parents on the process because we could not cause any negative effect on them. So, parents also should know the results of the assessment or the performance of the students, enable for them to be aware on what are the following improvements that we need to do or what are the problems that they are struggled on, and enable for them to be aware. And next, the school usually sets schedule and guidelines for teachers to confer with parents, These guidelines are communicated during the parents' orientation at the beginning of the school year. So, as a teacher, we should allow the school to set a guidelines or set a schedule on how to confer with parents, and hindi yung basta-basta na lang na gagawa ng sariling desisyon upang makapag-communicate sa parents ng mga estudyante. So, kailangan nating maghintay kung ano yung mga reminders or guidelines ng paaralan. And some of the guidelines na siniset is during the parents' orientation. So, some of the reminders or some of the guidelines is andyan sa parents' orientation, kung ano ang dapat gawin at kung ano ang dapat na hindi gawin. So, it is at the beginning of the school year. And that's it. Thank you for listening.
Guidelines that can be followed in conducting parent and teacher conference. Here are a few guidelines to follow in conducting a successful parent-teacher conferences. Start with a positive about their child. Even if he or she is one of your most challenging student behaviorally or academically, begin with a positive anecdote, trait, or simply, "I'm so happy that you are in my class." It comforts parents, show you care, and let them know you notice their child. Plus, it will make it easier when you need to give constructive feedback about their child if they have received positive feedback first. Don't forget that it is a team effort. Though you may know their child well as a student, the parents have known them their whole life. You need their support just as much as they need yours. Don't be afraid to ask what works for them at home, or if they have an insight on their child regarding a certain behavioral or situation. If they are also struggling with the same issues, then as a team, you can make a plan on how to respond to make it consistent across environment. Share an example of a student reflection during the conference. Whether written or recorded, it brings the child's voice into the conference and allows them to take ownership of their learnings and behavior. Don't arrive unprepared. Parent will most likely ask, "How is my child doing?" Have specific examples ready to share that will show where their child is excelling and in what areas they need more practice or support. Be ready to answer the question, "How can I help my child?" Have a source list of reading comprehension strategies, book recommendation, or math problems examples. As a parent, are always grateful to walk away with concrete example and language to help them. Don't talk about other students. Even if parents bring them up, parents-teacher conferences are a very short and meaningful time for parents to discuss their child. Try to keep on the focus on how their child is doing, not comparing him or her to anyone else or discussing a social conflict. What happened in school? You don't want to mention another child's name. However, you can share your observation on how their child handled a situation. Try to have fun. Enjoy this opportunity to bond with your students' parents and give them insight into who their child is as a student. Every school has different requirements for parents-teacher conferences, and every teacher has their own style of what works for them during conferences. These are some few guidelines on how to provide you with some new ideas or confirm what you are on the right track. Happy conferencing!